podcast for those who suffer, which is everyone.
It's a space where we can speak honestly about what it feels like to be in desolate places without losing hope.
Welcome to In the Thicket. This week we're joined by Marie and Andre Brunet, who share about their experience of infertility. We know that this is a particularly heavy cross for people, and we know that there are a number of you who are carrying this cross right now. So we wanted to let you know that we are praying for you in a very special way this week. And if you'd like us to pass on your name to Marie and Andre so they can pray for you as well, you can feel free to message us on Instagram or Facebook. We hope that this episode is a source of hope for you. Hi, everyone. Welcome to In the Thicket. How is everybody today? That was the best.
Like that. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Just like silence.
I love it so much. It's so great. It's because we're recording at an unusual time today, I think.
It's true.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Erin, how are you doing?
Today I'm doing all right. I just had a pumpkin spice decaf latte, which was really nice. And I always feel a little bit weird for being excited about pumpkin spice because it seems very cliche about fall, but I really love them.
It's good.
That's great.
Yeah.
It is good.
Yeah,
Right?
it is good. How about you, Nicole? How are you doing?
Good. Well, you're a pumpkin cookie not pumpkin cookie. Well, it reminds me of a story about pumpkin cookies.
Okay.
I was talking with some of my students and they were asking me, so I'm in Nashville, right? And I'm teaching music therapy. And so my students the other day, they asked me, so what are you going to do about Thanksgiving? Like, are you going to celebrate Canadian Thanksgiving or American Thanksgiving or both? And so then I was telling them that for the last few years, I lived in Toronto and had a lot of American friends who kind of celebrated both. So I'll just probably celebrate both this year. And then I made the mistake of saying, but maybe I'll bring pumpkin cookies or something on the Monday of Thanksgiving, right? And they all got so excited. And now I'm like, oh no.
Now you have to bring pumpkin
I have
cookies.
to figure out how to make pumpkin cookies.
That's right.
Anyway.
Figure out how to make them. That's good.
So funny.
That's good. How about you, Rachel? How are you doing?
There's a lot of stuff right now. There's just a lot of stuff going on with my family. Not bad stuff, good stuff, but like it's like a madhouse in my home right now. So I'm good, but it's like one of those situations where it's like everybody suddenly had to get into high gear and get like a million things done in 5 days that we had planned to get done in 2 months. And so it's like that. But however you would imagine that would be, that's
sweet. Yeah. Today we have with us some very wonderful guests who I'm so excited to see. I'd like to introduce you all to Marie and Andre Brunet. Which is so funny because every time I say it, I want to do I feel like this when I say your name. Because I am not a French speaker, like a native French speaker, I can say Marie and Andre Brunet, but it sounds weird. And like I'm in an Italian restaurant and I'm saying yes, please, I'll have the fettuccine for supper. It's not. Anyways, so hello. How are you, Marie and Andre Brunet?
We're good. Yeah, we're well. Thanks. Thanks for having us.
We're doing well. Thank you.
And where are you located now?
We are in Winnipeg, Manitoba.
Yay for Winnipeg. So for those listening, Nicole is from Winnipeg. That's where her family was.
Story.
And I had the pleasure of meeting Marie and Andre when I was there working for the Archdiocese of Winnipeg. Which seems like a million years ago, right?
A million years ago.
I know.
It feels like a lifetime ago.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
Things have changed, but things are still the same.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. And Jesus is coming back soon. So, we'll all be together. Oh my goodness. So we had, because the topic of this particular episode is looking at fertility, challenges with fertility, and we wanted to have a little question that's kind of on the topic, which is something to do with kids. So I thought it would be funny for people to share a funny story. Like, what is a funny story that happened to you when you were a kid, or that is a funny story with like a nephew or a niece or son or daughter? So I'm going to let the parents on this episode go first and share. What's your funny story?
Okay. I think you should start.
I'll start. Okay.
First.
So I grew up in I'm the eldest of four, and my baby sister, when she was 3, she was diagnosed with leukemia.
Mm.
It all turned out really well, and that's not really what the story is about. But every time we get together as a family, the story just keeps coming back as something funny that happened. So one time we were in the hospital with her, part of our many treatments, and we were all there. And my other sister, who was probably 5 years old at the time, needed to drink something, and she wanted a straw. Well, in French, to ask the nurse for a straw, you say pie, or which sounds like a piece of pie, like
Right.
cherry pie. So my little 5-year-old sister went to the nursing desk and said, "Can I have a pie, please?" And then she came back in her room with popsicles for everybody. And you're like, "Why do you have popsicles?" I said, "Well, I asked for pie and they gave me popsicles. They didn't have any pie." So anyways,
That's great.
that's just the story that always comes up whenever we start talking about straws. We start, it turns into my sister coming back with popsicles. And then
Nice.
the funny thing is, the nurse finally figured it out and came running in the room. Was like, "I
With
figured
a
it
straw.
out. I have a straw for you guys."
Oh, that's so cute.
We milked that for as long as we could and got all the popsicles we can get out of the nurse.
Right. Yes,
Nice.
absolutely. Totally valid. Yeah. Yeah. How about you, Marie? What's your funny story?
Okay, my funny story is like it's kind of, there's kid involved, but it's more of like the super exhausted mom story. And like, so anyways, it's a story
This is
about
awesome
me.
already.
It's a story about me, and it's actually going to sound really crazy, but it's a real true story. So so my first daughter, who is now 8, she was about, I would say, around 6 months at the time, and I was home alone with her, and she had just woken up from a nap, and I had changed her diaper and put her like down on the ground, and she was able to crawl and move around at that age. So anyways, I put her down on the ground, and then I went and like washed my hands in the bathroom, closed the door to the bathroom because she could crawl and she could get in the bathroom, and like she would like, open the toilet and kind of, want to get into that stuff. So anyway,
All the paper,
so yeah,
toilet paper is the other way.
I closed the door.
Totally.
Anyways, I go back in her room. It's like right across from the bathroom. And I'm like, she's not there. I'm like,
Oh,
oh,
my
she crawled
goodness.
away.
Oh.
So I'm like, okay. So I call her. Her name is Emmanuel. I'm like, Emmanuel. And I'm calling her. And I'm like, at the same time, I'm walking through the house. So I walk through the kitchen. I'm like, she's not there. I'm like, Emmanuel. I walk through the living room, not there. So basically the whole house. I walk through the whole house.
Oh my
And I'm like,
gosh.
Emmanuel. And okay, so this is like, I was not getting lots of sleep at the time. She wasn't a very good sleeper at all, even at that age. And so like, I'm like, not like, I have, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 hours of sleep on me, right? And so I'm like, okay, I've called her. All of a sudden my brain was like, do I have a child? Did I make all this up?
Is this real?
Did I imagine that I have a kid? I was like,
Gosh. Oh my God.
That's so
gosh.
amazing.
do I have a child? And then all of a sudden I'm like, wait a second. So I opened the bathroom door. The light in the bathroom was closed because I shut the door and couldn't shut the light. So I opened the door to the bathroom. It's like pitch dark in there. She's sitting on the ground in the bathroom, like quiet, no noise, just sitting there. And I'm like, okay, she exists. Okay.
This is, yes, I did not.
I do have a daughter. That's amazing.
Okay, that was
Out of my
awesome.
mind. Anyway,
There's
so
going to
yeah,
be
she's
someone
up
who,
there.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
There's
Mhm.
going to be someone who hears that story and feels very validated. Probably
right,
multiple
that's right.
people.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
It also went
amazing.
in a totally different direction from what I was
Totally.
expecting.
Such a
Like,
good story.
I thought she was going to be in a funny place, or you found her, she was like strapped to your back the whole time, or like something like that. But that's
Right.
even
That's
better.
good.
That's
Yeah,
good.
she had
That's
basically
good.
just snuck in, and I hadn't even seen her in there. So yeah, but yeah,
Nice.
she was
Sweet.
alive. Yeah.
Okay, this is good. Okay, real quick, here's my story. This week I was sick for a few days, and my little nephew, who is almost 2 now, he is like learning all the words. So he's like a parrot. He's, everything is like, whenever he sees a light, he's like, light. That's really cute. Anyways, and he also the other day, for the first time, said to my sister, no. Like she said something and he was like,
Whoa.
no, which is a big deal,
Mhm.
So we were signing off on FaceTime, and she was like, okay, should we say to Auntie Kate, get well, Auntie, love you? No. It's like, no. And I just, because I just laughed my butt off. Anyways, so that was my most recent funny story. How about you, ladies? Either of you, Nicole or Rachel, have a funny one to share?
Like, yes, but okay, so you go, Rachel. I'm
Okay,
trying to
I'll-
decide which one to tell.
Okay, I didn't know which one either, but then it was inspired by Marie. I don't know if I'm saying your name right.
Marie, yeah.
Marie. That's okay. You know, Erin freaked me out with all the
I
French.
know,
Like,
right?
should I say their
Marie.
Marie. Okay, so yeah, so it's me getting lost. Or I had gone with my mom to. I have cousins and aunt and uncle in England, and so I think I was like a year old or like around about there. And we went to England. I was like walking and talking and stuff like that at that point a little bit. So, anyways, there was like 5 adults, I think, and I was the only kid, and they lost me. Like they couldn't find me, and it was at a mall, and so it was like everybody was panicking because it was like this mall in another country, and this like 1.5-year-old kid was nowhere to be found, and my mom was like just out of it, like out of her mind, like worry. I think they were looking for like, I don't know, maybe like half an hour or something, a long time to lose like a child that young.
Yeah.
And I don't know how they found me, or some person pointed it out or whatever. And apparently the entire time I just had found this like playhouse, this like dollhouse kind of playhouse thing. I just went in there and I was just literally playing house.
Sat
Like
inside.
a half an hour, and they came up and they like opened the door, and I was like, "Hey guys," and I was like, just kind of like
Just playing.
and like all the adults were like, I'm like nearly dead, and I was just so chill about it. So
Yeah.
it's kind of funny because when I was 7, I think I got lost in like a baby Toys R Us or Babies R Us or something, and like for 2 seconds, and I was like, "Mom, where are you?" Like when I was 7, I was like way more freaked. Which I guess makes sense, right? Because you more understand.
Right, being lost, and that it's
Yeah.
actually, yeah, that's
Yes.
right.
So I don't know if it's a funny story. Maybe it's a horror story for parents.
Maybe.
There you
That's
go.
right. That's right. Don't be afraid to go out in public with your kids, people. It's
Yeah, that's right.
it's fine. How about you, Nicole? Did you decide on a fun one?
Sure, I'll tell another story about kids being lost. So when I think I was about 5 or something like that. So I'm the oldest of 5 kids. So by the time I was 5, I guess there was me and 2 younger siblings, something about that age. Anyways, I decided that it would be cool to hide in the house and then see how long it took for my parents to find me. But like it was like hide and go seek, but they didn't know that I was playing hide and go seek. And so I hid under, we had, the crib bed. I could like kind of slide under there, and I just lay down under there for a while. And it took a while for all of a sudden my parents to be like, "Oh, like where's Nicole? We haven't seen her." So I heard them, and then I was like, "Yes, all right, it's gonna be good," and then waited for them, and they came into the room several times, did not look under the bed, and I was like, "I'm amazing. I have the best hiding spot." Like, and I was just so proud and everything, right? And then they were getting worried, right? I think this was like half an hour at some point that they couldn't find me, and I was just like, "I'm brilliant." And then I heard them be like, "Should we call the police?" And then I was like, oh. So then I just like crawled out, and then I just should have quietly walked into the kitchen and kind of waited for them to see me. And then I got a little bit in trouble. But anyways,
That's
all
pretty
ended
good.
up
Though.
well.
See, you were just hiding under the bed. See, this is all good information from Andre, just in case they ever, feel the need to.
Don't forget to check under
That's
the bed.
right. Don't
It's a
forget
really
to check under
obvious
the bed.
hiding
Yeah,
spot.
that's right.
I feel so bad for little Nicole though. You were like, "This is a great joke," and then it just all turned really sour.
Or maybe I feel like your parents were like, "I know what we'll do. We'll say we're going to call the cops. She will come out right away." They're like, "We got
that's
you."
so true.
Yeah, right. Maybe that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Did you guys ever try to
exactly.
run away from home? Like I remember trying to run away one time. We lived in an apartment building when I tried to run away, and I like packed my things, and it was like a fake like doctor's case, like and I like packed like, and I think I packed like a doll and like a random like toy. Like I packed toys, and I'm like, I'm ready
You need.
to run away. Exactly. Yeah.
Yep. I don't think I ever tried to run away from home, but I do remember that there was a thunderstorm, and I tried to pack a survival kit for if there was a tornado, and brought it down to the basement, and it was like paper and crayons and things like that.
Yeah, the
All
real
the
essential
essentials.
elements of
That's
you
right.
know all the preppers out there who are listening are like furiously taking notes. So Survival kit.
That's right.
Yeah. I did try and run away once. I don't remember what I put in the bag. I went and sat behind the shed for about 20 minutes and then I got hungry. And then I ate raspberries off our raspberry bush and got thirsty. And then I went back inside. So
There
that
you
was
go.
the extent
Wow,
of
you
it.
stuck it
Yeah.
out though. You stuck it out.
That's right. That's
My
right.
parents were just like, go ahead. And that put an end to it. I was like, oh.
I'm not punishing you by running away. Oh,
Yeah,
fine.
exactly.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, that was highly enjoyable, but let's turn to the topic of the day, which is all about you guys, Marie and
I'm
Andre.
just like silencing my phone right now because I'm like, it's making noise.
That's
1, 2.
awesome. Yeah, I've done that
Okay,
lots
done,
of times
done,
too.
done. Okay.
So you had like a whole journey with infertility over the years and what that's looked like and what that's looked like. My tongue doesn't work today. And I know there are lots of people who listen who have commented on that before and said that they'd love to hear an episode on this because it's one of those things that is so often experienced by people in various ways, but not really often talked about publicly, depending on your circle and all of those things. So I'm just going to turn it over to you guys, and you can tell us a little bit about yourself and maybe a little bit about your journey.
Okay. Should I start? I can.
Okay, so she'll fill in the blanks when I forget important bits, so we've been married 17 years. And the first 9 years was a big struggle for us. It took 9 years before we were able to conceive our first child.
Mm-hmm.
Those 9 years were a roller coaster of emotions and challenges, and yeah, a lot of difficulty and a lot of stress and fear and sadness. And yeah, infertility is a lonely place as a couple because it's hard to talk about. People, you see all your friends and family with their kids and they don't get it, and they're just like, you get to enjoy life, you don't have to deal with all this stress. And it's like, oh, we kind of want to. And it got to a point where we're like, let's just go to Hawaii for next Christmas because we don't want to have to deal with all the family and the friends and the kids. And it was just like, because Christmas is all about the kids and family and getting together. So I mean, we never got to that spot, but I mean, we were like talking about it. But so yeah, I don't know if you want to start at the beginning a little bit more.
It's a long story.
I'm just kind of,
But
yeah, it's a long story.
yeah, so I guess I'll try to keep it like pretty
Concise.
But yeah, so after we were married, we thought, well, basically we were gonna just wait a little bit, like we were just avoiding with NFP for about a year.
Not even.
Well, we thought we would be, because we were going to we did like a year of like sort of volunteer work or missionary work for a year outside of Canada, like in South America. And so there was like this idea that, okay, maybe it wouldn't be safe to have a pregnancy over there. Once we were in Bolivia, we're like, it's safe. So yeah, it wasn't even a whole year. And then and then it was just like on our own, like just from our charting, that I was like, like this is supposed to be working. It's not. No, things are not like adding up here. So so often they say, I think it is like a rule that you're supposed to like have infertility for a year before you actually can go to a doctor and say like, help us. But like so I think it wasn't a full year of actually trying before we like got back to Canada and saw the doctor. And yeah, and it's like, that feels like a billion years ago, but it was like, yeah, the beginning of like just this like long road of just struggling from then on, because like we had such a strong desire to have children. Like we were basically still pretty newly married at that point. And it was like, yeah, we just started, I guess, in the whole like what would be like just the normal avenue of like seeing your doctor, and then the doctor sends you to like a normal like fertility clinic, and then we go to the normal fertility clinic and we kind of have very limited options according to like our morals and our faith, which is sort of like where we were standing. And And so it was just like this kind of thing where like it just kind of rolled from year to year to year of like the same thing of like just going back to the doctor every year. I also really had like a really not, how do I say this? Not the most compassionate doctor. So basically he would just kind of like every year or so when we go back, he'd be like, so you're not pregnant yet. Basically because like sort of on their side of things, like they're like the mainstream fertility clinics are trying to put you into like the what do you call that? Like the
Like the IVFs or the
I'm thinking French, so like I'm thinking of, but like they want to put you on the path of IV.
right,
Right?
yeah.
They go like, well, you know, we can try this and this, but basically we think we were going to probably need to do this, right? And so we were into like the let's try this and this because there wasn't like we wanted to try like the options that didn't have to go that way. So there wasn't much that the doctor was offering, and so it was always like this, like, oh, so you're not pregnant, and I didn't know what to do. Like at that point, we had stopped charting, I think, because we were just like, let's just be like this, just try to do this, and like doctors at our fertility like clinic didn't look at charts, and we didn't have a doctor that would look at any of that. And so it was just like a year to year, like just disappointment and disappointment and disappointment and disappointment, and like trying some like fertility treatments that were like ethical to us, but like that were just not helpful, and some like very, I would say, unhelpful, like causing me like just like some medication that caused me like really high anxiety and like got me into like really bad mental states and things like that. And I was
you had
like,
to quit a job at one point because of the medication they gave you.
I was just like a mess. I was a mess, and none of it was actually like producing any fruit, results, right? Like it was just like no fruit. And so yeah, so it was just, and yeah, so it was really stressful, like in terms of like that whole side of just like the medical side of things. It was really stressful for our marriage. It was stressful, like they said as well, because of yeah, just the environment that we lived in. You know, we were like, all our friends were kind of getting married around the same time as us, and then, you know, like a year or so or some time like not too far after marriage they'd be starting their families. And then so it was just like this constant thing of like, okay, we're falling behind, we're falling behind, we're falling behind. And there's something weird about infertility that causes shame. Like, and I've never really been able to explain it, but I can tell you that anybody who's living with infertility, like, can tell you that there's this shame, like there's this some kind of shame, like you just feel like you're not complete, and you think that people will not be able to
worthy or something.
Yeah, you're not worthy. You can't. People will not be able to relate to what you are living. Often they can't really relate. So even sometimes when I would try to talk about infertility, it's just that sometimes, like, if you're not in the midst of that same type of suffering, you would like we would get something like, you know, I guess it would just trigger something in like a friend's mind. They'd be like, talk about their kids. I'm like, oh, okay, well, that doesn't help. But you know, so it was tough. It was very tough. And then so I guess we were obviously like, yeah, so we did, I guess, about 4 years of just trying to figure out like if like fertility like medication or something would help. And then after about 4 years, we decided that we would also go ahead with like applying for adoption. And so we did apply for adoption with like an agency that did open adoptions. And so you know, so we created our profile and worked through all of that. We had lots of like studies that had to be done on us, and like it's like when we were doing it, it's like we were applying to be parents, right? It felt so strange because like our friends were having kids, like boom, 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 like they're not applying, they're just doing it.
Right, that's right. None of them passed the exam.
You need your criminal record check. You need your, obviously, I mean, it makes sense for those things. You're a child support street, but then it's like you have to like write up things about like, why do you want to be a parent, and how are you going to be a parent, and then what are you going to do, and then like it's like you're doing like a full thesis on.
Well, it's a sell job. You're like selling yourself, because with an open adoption, it's moms that choose the parents. So you know, I mean, obviously you're honest, but you gotta still look.
You gotta look
presentable,
right? Yeah.
Like, we're gonna be the best parents for your kids.
And then we're like, okay, well, what should we say that they like? We don't want to be like sound too crazy or too pushy, or you know, it's like, oh my gosh. So it just was always like this thing where like, I can't believe how much we have to like just try to like write all this stuff up about us, and then like, yeah, I guess other parents are just like, just being parents, right? So
Mm.
anyway, so that was still
And
a
then
struggle too.
in the
But,
midst of that, we did actually have a mom come up to us
well,
and
that was
say,
after a few years, because we
after a
had
few
like after
years.
4 years of all that,
Yeah,
we decided to apply, but then we didn't get any calls or anything. Like you
It's
have to
about
be
2
called
years
if
after.
somebody picks your profile, basically. So we didn't get any calls, and then so then it was no, it was way more than that, Andre. It was like it was so we
yeah,
okay.
okay, yeah, it was
So
a few years
it
after.
was like the 8th year of our infertility that we actually got somebody who contacted us. And it wasn't even through the agency, it was just through like word of mouth.
and-
Somebody knew someone who was pregnant and who was wanting to place their child for adoption. And so anyways, this is a whole long story, but basically we
I
were
remember
asked
that.
to be parents for an unborn child. And he was like maybe only like, what was he, like
5, 6,
4 or 5
yeah,
maybe months gestation at that time. And then we
Mm.
went through the whole process like with
We-
the agency that was like
Yeah, we
helping
met
us.
the mom, we put out plans, everything was going along. Like we didn't do it on our own. We had the agency support and guide us through the whole process. And about 2 weeks before the baby was born, everything changed. And it's a long story, but the father got back involved and was able to take the baby. And,
Mhm.
so it felt like miscarriage to
Wow,
us.
yeah.
It's just like so deflating and depressing and all this. It's a little bit of hope that something good was
Well, it was
gonna
getting
happen.
bigger and bigger and bigger. Like that hope was like
Oh
super
my
rising because we
gosh.
were like 2 weeks before the baby was born, right?
Yeah.
And so anyways, yeah. And then like because like adoptions can fall through all the time. Like they always would tell us like don't announce it, don't tell people, like you don't even need to tell your family, just only
Don't
tell them.
prepare a
Yeah,
room,
don't prepare.
buy furniture.
So
So the agency did a good job of preparing us, but the heart is still like,
well,
Of
yeah, but the thing with
course,
that
yeah.
too is that like we hadn't told anybody, and then all of a sudden we're living like all of this like extreme like just
depression.
yeah, like just like the end of this world of what we were living at the time, and then like nobody had known about it.
Well,
Oh.
my mom knew about it.
Okay, that's a longer story.
She didn't tell us she
tell
knew
us
about it. She's waiting for this big announcement. And then,
Oh.
we went and told them about this big disappointment. And my mom was like, oh my gosh. Anyways.
So yeah, that's it
Oh.
was crazy. Anyways, so that happened.
Oh boy.
And then in the midst of all that, I'm still trying to do like fertility stuff. I'm still trying like, what can we do? What can we do? What can we do? And like, it always felt so impossible. Like there's nothing. Like we've tried what we can and there's nothing. And like, we stick very strongly to like our like moral stance. Like, and so we were just like, we're not doing anything artificial, but other than that, there's nothing. And we've lost like the only hope through this adoption. And then, yeah.
Let's talk about your work.
Oh yeah. Okay, but that's different.
Okay.
But okay.
But it
That's
leads
okay,
into
good.
Let's see. So, I mean, obviously it put a strain on our relationship. I mean, I felt horrible that Marie had to go through all these tests and invasive, tests and treatments and all this stuff. And anyways, it's a struggle. And then, but Marie was working for the diocese in the Office of Family and Marriage.
Yeah.
And so she was doing all her days, she's working on how to help couples stay together. And she would drag me into all of these things all the time, not kicking and screaming, but it was good.
So yeah, because I guess like we wanted to focus on that too, like the fact that like it is a big challenge for marriage. Obviously, we're just like especially as the years go by, it's like you're trying to be fruitful in your marriage, but yeah, it's like where do you find that fruitfulness? And so like the biggest so we had many blessings through this. So, like all of a sudden I mean previous to this we've been talking about all the struggles and everything, but there were lots of blessings. And one of those, like Andre said, it was the fact that I was actually working at that time for my diocese, St. Boniface Diocese, for the Office of Marriage and Family, and now it's the Office of Marriage Family Life. But yeah, so basically my job was to like create retreats for couples and to like find resources for couples to like heal their marriage and to like help them work through things. And it was like God put me in that place like right at that time when we were through like those big struggles, right? And so yeah, so like I just obviously I was married. So then I'm like, well, I got to find a good resource. Let's watch a whole bunch. So then we'd be like spending most of our like couple time, like just like watching videos on marriage and like working through programs on marriage. I would like kind of want to come up with a new idea for a retreat. So I'd be like, okay, let's put together this retreat. We'd go on this retreat and we'd like put it on, or we would like take part in a retreat. And so it was like, God was like, okay, you're struggling. You're like, you have this big cross right now, but I'm going to give you all this to like fill in the blanks while, until I can like, get you to the place where I'm going to bring you. Right. So that was just like a giant blessing that for some reason, I don't know, for some reason, but like, I didn't ask for that job. I just like ended up in that job. And then it was like just a big blessing. The other big blessing was that like, I did talk about like some people in our lives, like who just like wouldn't be able to get it and things like that. But we did have like some good friends that did get it and that like would always support us with prayer. And I feel like what got us through like our 9 years of infertility of like, this unknown, because it's always an unknown. It's like every single month you're like, is something going to happen? No, it didn't. And then it's like every month of your life for all those years, right? So just like to get through that, I mean, we were always praying, but we had really good friends that continued to pray and like strong like prayer support. And then once in a while, I would like randomly get a card or a message from a friend saying like, we're still thinking and praying for you guys. Like, and we support you in your struggles. Or I was like, wow, like people are just beautiful sometimes. And that like just those little things, like very infrequently, but just those little things would like really get us, or at least me. I had a lot more positivity, I find, or a lot more hope in the whole thing. I would get me through things, and then I'd be like, okay, Andre, we're gonna be okay.
Okay, so let's move this along. So because of her work, we ended up at a conference in Wisconsin for family and life, and there was a table there describing something called NAPRO technology, or natural procreative technologies. And I was like, Marie, have you heard of this? And she's like, yeah, it's just another charting system. And I'm like, I don't know, I think it's more than that. And
I like how this story makes you the hero.
Sorry.
And
That's right. Accurate. It's good.
It's true. It's true, because like I honestly, like I had seen everything. I had, and I was like, when I looked at descriptions of what NAPRO technology was, it was like, you can find the biomarkers that will identify your whatever, I can't remember what it was, but it was just like very like vague language that said like, okay, yeah, you're going to learn how to chart and you're going to understand your cycle, which is basically all of NFP, right? So I'm like, it's just another NFP. But I think what happened is like, I just was like, okay, yes, Andre pointed it out to me, and I was like, okay. I'll get more info on it. So we did. And then I really like delved into it. I was like, okay, we were actually at the time, we were in the process of adoption. I think we were like in this whole process.
So we
already.
went from open adoption to a private adoption option, and then that was moving along.
Okay, yeah, because we had lost that adoption, and then we were like, anyways, we started like moving forward with like what other options for adoption we could do. And so we were working through that, but at the same time, I was like, okay, let's get into this NAPRO thing. And then I can't go into all of it, I'm sure, because I don't think we have as much time as I would love.
That's another podcast.
But basically, like, so it's like a very morally sound approach to fertility care. So it's like nothing artificial. It's just going into doing a lot of testing, which is not what I got from the local fertility clinic here. They didn't do much testing. They were like, nah, okay, fine, we'll just give you this, and then we'll, put you in that like path towards IVF. Whereas NAPRO technology was like, let's go in depth into like what's going on in your body, what's going on with your cycle, what's going on with your ovulation, what's going on with your hormones, your vitamins, like just like a ton of testing, a ton of blood work, ultrasounds, to really find out, and like charting as well, to find out what's happening. And you know what, it was absolutely crazy. So I wasn't able to have a doctor in Manitoba at the time, there weren't any, but I was like, I had a doctor that I saw in Toronto, and then I was able to like just do online, like email basically, and phone with her at the time. But like what was absolutely crazy was like, after I did like all the testing and like the charting and all that stuff, I had a phone call with her, and all of a sudden she was like telling me, okay, this is what's happening. This is what's happening. This is what's happening. And in 9 years of infertility, there was not a doctor that ever told me what was happening. in my life, in my fertility cycle or anything. Like it was like there was always like this, like,
Unknown,
unexplained.
unexplained.
And all of a sudden, this
Yeah.
doctor's like, this is what's happening. And so, and then she's like, this is what we're gonna do. This is what we're gonna do. This is what we're gonna do. Okay, so I did. Like, so I won't go through all of, because it's different for any person who's going to be going through fertility treatments with them, because of the extensive research into
Can
what the body is doing,
So
like personally.
essentially, she looks at the whole ovulation process and then all the hormones that are being released, and then she's just trying to
But there's
adjust.
more. There's like
more.
the ultrasounds and like the.
But the ultrasounds look at the ovulation and
Yeah.
then the hormones, and then she lines it up, and then she can tell, what hormone is lacking at what point of the cycle. So
There was more than that.
it's more
There was a
detailed
lot
than
of
that.
stuff, and it would be different for any person or any couple. Yeah,
Right.
any woman who's going through it. But in my case, I had to like take like a certain like medication for ovulation. At some point, I had to take certain hormones, and then I had to take like extra vitamins. After one cycle of doing exactly what the doctor asked me to do at the right times in my cycle, I got pregnant.
First positive
Wow.
pregnancy test in 9 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I got pregnant. And then I was like, this is like the biggest thing that ever happened in our life, right? Like the biggest miracle.
Wow.
So anyways, yeah. So, so not only then were we like pregnant, but then with like the doctor that practices in naprotechnology, she followed me through the whole pregnancy, like continuing to do tests, continuing to give me like hormones when I needed them. So I was like carried through that whole pregnancy. And this, like, after 9 months, we had our first daughter named Emmanuelle.
Wow.
God is with us. Yeah. That's her name. Yeah.
So her name is Emmanuelle Gianna Marie Brune. Emmanuelle, God is with us. Gianna, God is gracious, right? And Gianna also, because she was one of our big intercessors, we actually met with Saint Gianna's daughter, and actually her two daughters and her
kids,
son.
yeah.
But we did spend a lot of, I would say, we spent a good like couple of hours with her daughter,
Emmanuelle.
Gianna Emanuela, who like assured us of her mother's prayers for us and her understanding. And so we have like a very big devotion to Saint Gianna, who is like one of the patron saints for difficult pregnancies or for infertility. So Gianna is one of Emmanuel's middle names, and then Marie, because we'll tell a little story after that, it's for Mary, but a particular like devotion to Mary. And so so we
That's
have
so beautiful.
we have 2 daughters now. And so like again, through the miracle of having been able to discover naprotechnology, I did have a miscarriage.
We had a miscarriage. We suffered a little bit of secondary infertility as well. It took 5 years to
A little bit.
Well, okay.
Sounds like a little bit compared to our 9 years.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So we suffered. We dealt with a little more infertility and a miscarriage in between our 2 daughters, but it's been quite the journey, and now we're blessed with a 2-year-old and a 8-year-old.
So our 2-year-old is Miriam
Beautiful.
Elizabeth. So
That's beautiful.
So Miriam is long-awaited child, and then Elizabeth is goddess. Oh no, God is plentiful. I think it's goddess plentiful.
That's plentiful. Yeah. Yeah.
I haven't
great.
slept since she was born, so.
That's funny. It's funny when you say that, like when you tell that story, you guys are famous in the Archdiocese of Toronto with all of the current seminarians, because when we were talking about, I forget what class it was. I think it was human sexuality and marriage, and then a couple of other classes, my bioethics class, I think. I told basically every seminarian that I could tell while I was taking classes whenever it was could possibly come up, because for me, NAPRO, when I was able to access it, I got a diagnosis with endometriosis like 10 years after I had been trying to do anything, and was able to actually access like surgery and care for the first time ever. Like the only thing that anybody had ever said to me before was like, take the pill.
Yeah.
So it was like, and it was like life changing for me, like not even in the area of having kids, but your story is not you know, the only one that I've heard like that. But I was like telling the seminarians, like, you got to know that there's this thing out there, like, and it's not. And it's
Oh,
not even
yeah.
that it's, you know, because not
Oh yeah,
everybody.
it's important that they know. Like even, I
Yeah.
mean, we made sure that our bishop knew about NAPRO or knows about NAPRO. And like, we really think that like, yeah, especially just because couples will just end up like doing what we did, you know, they go to the doctor and then the doctor will send them to like just the regular fertility clinic. And if you don't get to tap into what actually exists in terms of like NAPRO, it's not just, I mean, it's like super in line for Catholics, but the thing is, it's also super just like the best
It
way
works.
to find out what's
Mhm.
going on in your body,
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
It's just good science. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And
Mhm.
so I also have endometriosis and I like really didn't get much help with it from like just the regular avenues, but with NAPRO, like tons of help, like lots of different aspects, even just controlling pain and things like that. So
Yeah. Yeah. My goodness. It's such an intense, like I'm thinking of that 9 years, you know, with that, especially like what you say, because it's not just like kind of like some nebulous hope that like goes around, but it's like a cyclic hope and
yeah,
defeat of that hope. You know what I
Right.
mean?
yeah,
Like in a
Which, well,
short
do you know what I
cycle,
mean?
relatively
Yes.
speaking.
I know what
Yeah.
you mean.
Yeah. So, I'm wondering if you can talk about like what that was like for you, like what kind of, I don't know, feelings or thoughts or whatever, like what that was like for you in those times and how you guys really got through that, like ways that you found to kind of
We
manage
lived it
that.
really differently. Like I
Mm.
guess I would let you start first because you were more
Well, I think,
had a lot of difficulty with it.
yeah, as the man and the introvert, and maybe not the most comfortable sharing and expressing feelings, I think I got shut down a lot more
Mm.
and just kind of went into myself. And I mean, I could see the pain that Marie was going through and the disappointment every month. And you know, I think the biggest struggle was not being able to be as supportive as I possibly could. And, you know, every once in a while we'd have these big, you know, kind of not meltdowns, but just like difficult conversations and sessions. And then we would not talk about it for a while and then have these big kind of intense situations and then kind of ignore it for a while. So there was that. And then there was, I mean, obviously I went through different stages and, you know, different periods, but it was, yeah, I guess it felt lonely for me.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess I don't want to speak for you, but I know like one thing that Andre would talk about a lot was like the loss of hope. Like he lost hope at some point, like completely, right? When I started doing, because I started doing NAPRO because honestly, like we didn't do NAPRO together. Like it is like there is like NFP aspect to it. And I mean, he did try to help a little bit, but by then he had lost hope completely. And
I was
we had already
skeptical and
yeah, we had already lost like
doubtful.
our adoption, and so like he went like into like pretty low place after that, and it was like yeah, he was just like he didn't have hope. And I think like you were talking about like struggling with like believing that God could do anything or believing that God actually cared, and so yeah, so he was in that place a lot, and I would be like trying to like pull him out of there, but at the same time I was also obviously struggling through the whole thing as well. And so it was really challenging for me though. Like I guess like a lot of prayer, a lot of like, I guess because I was able to have people a little bit more to talk to. It wasn't like not always easy just talking about it. It wasn't that often that I got to talk about my struggles. But then like Erin at one point started up like a little sharing group for a few women that were in our area. And that was really good. Like it was really good because I didn't have anything like that until then. And it wasn't like an infertility group, it was nothing like that. But it was a faith sharing group. But it gave me an opportunity to have like a group of women to talk with and pray with. And that was like really golden for me. But Andre didn't really like have that kind of thing, or I don't know if he would have been open to it anyways as the
Probably
introvert of our couple. But
I wouldn't have tapped into much.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I guess like in my heart and like I just like down in the depths of me, I would always say to myself, and I would try to repeat this to Andre as much as he would let me say it. I would say like God can't, he won't forget us. Like God will not forget us. Like he's got to have something for us. Like I was just convinced, because I think of, like, I just needed to convince myself of that, because I was like, you know, like, this was a long time. Like we had been through, like, we were almost at a, like a 10-year anniversary type of thing, right? And I was always like, in my mind, there was always like this thing where, like, by this year of marriage, by the 5th year of marriage, God will provide for us and somehow this will work out. And then I was like, no, okay, the perfect number. By our 7th year of marriage, God will provide for us and we will have children. And then it was like, so it was like, okay, this is not working out. And it was like, I would have like tons of time of like real, like down, like really being really down and being really upset about lots of things. But I guess, and I always, what do I call that? What do I say that word? I lose a lot of words in my mind, but I attribute it, that's a good word, to like the prayers that were always surrounding us, that somehow I still had that hope that God can't forget us. I would tell somebody, like, he's not going to forget us. How could he forget us? He will not forget us. And I was convinced of that, like somewhere inside of me. And then it's like, what? He really didn't forget us? Like, honestly, like when we realized that he gave us a child and I was pregnant, I was like, no, really? Like, I was like, it was unbelievable, really unbelievable. Even though that whole time I had said he couldn't forget us, like, we were just like, our minds were absolutely blown.
Well, then I actually had a hard time believing it. Like during the whole pregnancy,
that's
I
true.
wouldn't allow myself to really feel too much emotion, because I was like, something's gonna happen. It's not gonna work out. Something's gonna go wrong.
Well, I was high risk, and that's why I was being followed like so very closely. But Andre was like, he's also a nurse. We didn't mention that, eh? He's a nurse, and so the medical side of things, he knows everything that can go wrong, right? So everybody could know what could go wrong, but Andre, like, particularly could focus on those things.
Like in tune with those things. Right?
And so that was actually, like, it was a big challenge during our pregnancy, because I was like filled with joy all the time, like in my own heart and in my life. But then there, like, I'd turn to Andre and he'd be like, you know, like he'd still have like the heaviness. So I considered him to be like, the story I would tell is like, I guess I told it afterwards. I wouldn't want to like put that on him while we were going through it, but I called him, like, he was like Zechariah and I was like Elizabeth. And because Zechariah, like, couldn't believe that, like, that they
lost his voice.
That there could be that there could be a baby, right? And so so like, it's like Andre didn't lose his voice, but he lost like sort of like this ability to like believe, I guess. And then all of a sudden we had a baby, and like, boom, Andre's like, I had never seen so much joy in my husband. Like, I mean, except for the day we got married, of course, because we but yeah, like, he was finally able to speak, right? And the speaking is like the joy that, like,
allow myself to feel it.
So it was just like, even through the pregnancy, just like, and I guess even our second pregnancy, like, okay, so like our third, I should say, because I did lose a baby like about 18 months after we had our first. I was pregnant again, and even though I was followed through NAPRO, like, there was just the baby like was just struggling, and so I lost well, we have a name for him, because we don't know, like, we don't like scientifically know that he was a boy, but we believe that he's a boy, and so his name is Joseph André. So
beautiful.
So Saint Joseph and Saint Brother Andre. We ask him to pray for us every night. But so I did lose him at 12 weeks. And that was a very difficult pregnancy for me, because I was struggling at the, like, I guess because I knew from the very beginning there were like challenges, and I just, like, I had that feeling like, this is not going to work out. Like, we're not going to meet this baby. That one was very, very challenging, especially, just because of how things worked out, obviously. And then like 5 years later, with our pregnancy with Miriam, again, Andre was still like, you know, like, there's just the doubtful, like, is this, I don't know, is it going to work out? So very, very, like, I don't know, how would I say?
Skeptical.
I don't know.
Mhm.
Anyways.
But she's beautiful. She's a great kid. She doesn't sleep much. Well, she does now. Now that she's two,
She's
she sleeps a
better.
little more. But yeah, so there,
The joys of parenthood, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
but yeah, I guess like that is another thing that comes along with infertility is just like, well, and also those who experience miscarriage is just like the struggles even during pregnancy, like just
Mhm.
to like, and I was also struggling with Mediana's pregnancy, having lost a child before that, and knowing I was still high risk. Like it's just like, you know, there's like this worry, this constant worry, because like everybody wants their pregnancies to go well, right? But like
Mm.
you're like you just there's this extra strain on like, you know, because you've lived through like the parts of life where you haven't
The
been able to
loss.
have successful pregnancies or
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It reminds me, it really strikes me when you talk about other people, like even with the adoption and things like that, of like not really telling a lot of people, or even when you're pregnant. Like I remember when I found out that you were pregnant, and I remember like crying, like, and not even just like once, but like thinking about it like periodically and having tears, like actual
yeah.
tears, like which is such a, like, it's so beautiful that to even hear you talk about how life-giving it was to have those people in your life, like
Mhm.
around you, that the prayers were actually doing something. Like it's not just
Yeah.
people who are like saying like, oh yeah, that's hard, I'll pray
Mhm.
for you, but like actually like praying along with you for the Lord's will to like manifest in your life and for him to bless you with a child, you know?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I can remember that too, because I don't, how old is Emmanuel?
She's 8.
8.
She's
Yeah, she
8.
just
Yeah.
turned 8. Yeah.
Okay. Because I remember, I think my mom sharing that you were expecting, and we prayed for you like
Oh,
almost every day throughout the whole pregnancy. So I
thank
think there's a
you.
lot like in the community that we're just kind of like really, you know, thinking of you, praying for you guys and carrying you, you know. So it's so beautiful to hear kind of the story, because I don't, you know, we didn't know you that, I didn't know you guys that well.
Yeah.
But yeah, really beautiful to hear.
Well, thank you. Oh my gosh. It's like, you know, yeah, like even just knowing people were praying for us, even now, like, you know, just, yeah, the fact that we know that you got your family was praying for us. We don't know if we knew at the time, but like, it's
Sure.
just,
Yeah.
yeah, it's so touching. Like, it's just, yeah,
Mhm.
it made a giant difference for our lives. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
It's funny because I think that like someone, it was like, I remember my mom saying like, okay, we're not really supposed to know, but but Maddie's pregnant, but we're just gonna pray, but don't tell anybody. We're not or something like that.
Oh, that's funny.
I don't know if I made that
Yeah.
memory up, but there's
I don't know. Yeah. But basically, like for myself, like when we found out we were pregnant, I was like, tell the world. Because
Okay.
it was like because we knew like this was like perhaps our only chance to have a child, right? And so like yeah, we didn't know that we were ever going to be able to
We
have any
didn't.
more, so we were just like, pray, everybody pray, please pray.
Like a
And
lot of
so
couples wait for like 12, 13 weeks or something to make sure that
Right.
everything's going okay, but we're like, no, it's just we need the prayers. We
Yeah.
need the
Get the
prayers.
word
yeah,
out.
yeah, and we just had with every one of our pregnancies, just like let people know as soon as we could, to just let the prayers flow and like have people just support us as much as they could if possible. So yeah.
So funny.
Mhm.
Erin and I are pointing at each other on Zoom. If anyone's if no one's whoever's listening, because we're both like a mess. And I just met you guys today. Like I don't. This is the first time I'm hearing the story. I'm like literally like
Oh,
just
we're doing this late at night. It's like, oh my gosh.
That's right. I know,
Oh my
right?
goodness.
I
But
know.
no, it's so. I mean, I think for me, like I'm just hearing the story for the first time. But I think the thing that keeps coming up to mind, because I can really relate to Andre. I think for me, I'd be like, I'm very cerebral about like, okay, this hasn't happened. Like the chances of something happening from in my mind are like, if it hasn't happened, it's just the chances keep diminishing and they don't increase, you know? And it's not even just like in so many cases, I feel like my past teaches me what to expect for my future rather than clinging to like a hope that in a God who can do anything at any time, which is the God that we believe in. But I think that like, it's, you know, the question that kept coming to your mind was like, why the Lord chooses particular people for particular journeys, you know, for particular, and dare I even say like for particular crosses, which I don't think he desires us to feel in pain at all, but like he allows particular crosses into specific people's lives. And I feel sometimes like it's awful, but also there's a kind of beautiful grace that is given, you know, in the midst of those incredibly, unbelievably painful journeys. And the fruit of that is like what we're experiencing right now, like, you know, crying and thinking about all the people in the community who were given hope by your daughter and by your journey and all of that kind of stuff. But it is that like constant surrender, like it's a radical surrender that God asked of both of you. It's like real tough. Like, you know, he doesn't make that request of everyone in the same way. I mean, I think he does at some point in all of our lives, he does. But for some of us, it's in a more poignant way, and it's in a more like he really set you apart in this particular story, and it's very beautiful because we can imagine how difficult that must have been, and like what a Calvary really that was, and therefore like what a resurrection, you know, the blessing was as well. But I imagine that we're like you've explained, Marie, like some of the smaller resurrections that God needed to give you so that you could continue that walk, you know, and that gives me a lot of hope, because I think a lot of us in one way or another are on that Calvary in some part of our lives, and we need to look for those small moments of resurrection and grace that God gives us to keep going, because he has a plan, because he hasn't forgotten us, like you said, you know. And I think that's such a beautiful kind of tagline for this whole episode. Like, God does not forget us, you know, his children. He never forgets us. So it's just like, we're a mess. That's what we're just a mess.
That's beautiful. Can I ask, what was it like for you? Like whenever it happened, whether it was like when Emmanuel was born and you held her for the first time or whatever, but it's because it's clear to see you, like to know you as a couple, the motherliness and the fatherliness that is there, that was there before you had your daughters even, right? And your son, like that was there, like in, I don't know, just how you are in the world. So what was it like when that, for you, when it was like fulfilled in that way?
I want you to answer.
Well, I mean, it was a massive relief, and I mean, it's undescribable, the joy that you get seeing your child for the first time. Like, you think you can love somebody. It's impossible to imagine you can love anybody more than this little helpless baby that you're holding in your arms for the first time. And then, I mean, those 9 years, I don't know, they're gone. Like, like, that's not what I was thinking about. I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm a father, and I got to take this baby home and care for it. And yeah, I mean, the amount of joy and love that you can have for a child is just incomprehensible. How that happens, like how much is so strong that is.
Yeah. I mean, like, okay, so my first words when she was born I was like, did that baby just come out of me? Like, I was helping like one of my friends for all of her births, and she had 6 babies, and like I had only seen babies come out of her, and so, babies come out of me. Like, I was just like, oh, this is unbelievable.
No, it also took 30 some hours.
It was, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh man, you're a champ.
But yeah, like I have to say, like throughout all of the challenges, like of like whatever it was, like she had lots of challenges with breastfeeding. She had challenges with like growth at the beginning. She had challenges with like, I shouldn't say this, but like just like spiritedness, let's say. Like she just like all sorts of things, right? Those were like nothing to me. Like bringing up Emmanuel, they were just like all joys. Like every single thing was a joy. Every little moment was a joy. And I just like, I couldn't imagine being more happy. Like I was like, sleep, don't need it. You know, food, maybe once in a while. Baby, like I'll take her and I'll just love her. Like, yeah, it was just like my life had changed completely, and I was ready to just like I had just like do I have a job? No, I don't need a job. Do I have like, I was like, I just need this baby, you know, like I was like waiting for so long for this child. And so it was like just joy. And I shouldn't say it was. I mean, she
still is a joy.
Yeah, that's right.
Just in the other room.
And I have like we have fullness of joy in our family. We have a family, you know. So but okay, like I mean, reality does kick in after you haven't slept for quite a few years.
Right, sure,
like, okay,
yes.
yeah, parenting is like challenging, and yes, you know, we're in the midst of it and everything.
My sister once fell asleep in the middle of breastfeeding. Like she was feeding in the middle of the night. I was sitting and talking to her, and she was mid-sentence and fell asleep mid-sentence talking to me.
Oh,
that's it, you know?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna ask and see if you have because I think the reality is too that so many people who are listening to this might be kind of they're like in the 9 years. Some of them might be like 20 years into the 9 years, and you know, and some may have end up having kids either naturally or through adoption, and some may not. So if there's, from your experience, I'm just curious to see if there's anything that you would share with them, like things that were helpful for you, or any words for them.
Yeah, one of the things that we had to try to focus on, like during those 9 years, and even like the 5 years past that, was just like, just how can we be fruitful as a couple? Because fruitfulness is biological if it's possible, but we didn't ever know if it was going to be possible for us the first time, and we didn't know if it was ever going to be possible for us again afterwards with miscarriage and secondary infertility. And so so I guess we discovered like a lot through just, you know, learning through like my role in helping couples and things like that, just to be able to explore like what can make us fruitful in our life. And so it could be you know, spending our efforts, you know, helping other people, like we were helping with like marriage preparation, for example. It could be by like giving of ourselves like for different needs in the church,
music ministry, and
so we had to like go into
and
ourselves,
helping our friends.
helping our friends with their kids, and
yeah,
so we did a lot of that, which just sometimes was challenging, but like at the same time it was very like life-giving. So we had to like be able to recognize that those acts and those ways of giving of ourselves were also fruitful, and they still are fruitful, so that in a marriage our vocation to fruitfulness is still can still be accomplished, even though it's not biological. And so like being godparents to other children.
And in prayer, of course, I mean, we always made a point of praying together, regardless, you know, what's going on, and just ending the day with prayer always, I think, helps ground us, and is an important habit that we've always had, and I think has kept us stronger.
Yeah, but I mean, like you're right. There are couples who are not going to be able to experience the biological fertility, or may not end up even being able to adopt. And so like, I continue to pray for those people who are still struggling, or who are, you know, perhaps not struggling with it anymore, but maybe are just like are living it, and then just hopefully trying to find like their fruitfulness, right? Hoping to focus on what they are able to live as a couple in their fruitfulness.
Yeah. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. My goodness. Well, ladies, is there anything else that you guys wanted to share, Nicole or Rachel, or shall I turn it over to Godwinks?
Godwinks.
Just thank you.
Seriously.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think this is such a beautiful story of hope, and like, you know, it struck one thing that struck me, Andrew, as you're talking about how when you held your daughter for the first time, it was like that 9 years was kind of gone, you know? And I feel like that's what you hear from a lot of women. It's like, okay, all the 9 months of pregnancy and the birth, it's like you hold the baby and it's like, yeah, never mind. It's all, gone. It's like, okay, you had, instead of a 9-month pregnancy, you guys had a 9-year journey together,
I never even thought of that. It's interesting. Yeah.
But just just the beautiful, and just the hope that because I'm thinking of things in my own life where there's waiting and where there's uncertainty, and just that call to continue to hope, like God has not forgotten. I think that's just a really beautiful, that's hitting me, so thank you for all your sharing.
Yeah. And I think that's a good thing to remember. I think it's even like, it's making me think right now. I'm like, I think I need to like ask the Lord for that. Like I need to ask him to remind me in a way that he knows how, that he has not forgotten me, which is which I think is good. So if anybody is listening right now and you're in that place, like whether it's because of infertility struggles or anything else, just to ask the Lord for that, because he's a good God. He answers us.
That's so right.
Yeah. I just want to add, actually, I never even, I kind of forgot about this part, but like I was in prayer at one point in our adoration chapel, like while we were living through for infertility. And there was one night where I was like, struggling every time I was praying because of, like our infertility. And there was one night where I was like, I just for some reason found like just a reason to like just put my complete faith in the fact that God was going to do something. And I said, God, if you're going to give us a child, could you, and say, give me, could you please give me a name for the child? And this was like a couple of years before we ever got pregnant. And he gave me the name Emmanuel. It was like clear to me. I was like, that's what I got from him. And then, so that's why we actually named her Emmanuel, was because like, I hardly ever had moments like that where I was just like, let's do this.
Just
God,
clear.
tell me. and that's what I got. So
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. I have to I have for any of our listeners, I have to go to the airport right now to pick up my brother-in-law to be. So I have to bow out of our conversation a little bit earlier than I would like, but I honestly just felt the Holy Spirit like so strongly and so powerfully throughout every part of your story. And I'm so grateful because like Nicole was saying, it was just so resonant for me in so many areas of my life. So I'm so grateful. Thank you guys so much for sharing that. It's such a gift. It's such a gift.
Thank you.
And to everybody on the podcast.
And on that note,
see you guys later. Yeah, exactly. Okay. God bless. Bye, guys.
Bye, Rachel.
Bye, Rachel.
Nice to meet you.
So good.
Mary and Andre, I hear you have a God wink that you were going to share with us.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So we'll try to keep it.
Yeah.
You start.
Mary mentioned the Adoration Chapel, Holy Cross. We went there for many, many years. We had our regular time slot. There was this one image, and I was going to try to find it, but anyways, it's called Our Lady of Perpetual Help.
Our Lady of Divine Providence.
Sorry. Different. Yeah, Divine Providence. Sorry. And it's an image of Mary holding baby Jesus, and Mary has this like absolutely beautiful look on her face and joy and peace. And I hated it because I didn't want to look at that thing, and it's in our Adoration Chapel. And I was like, it just reminded me of what we don't have all the time, right? So, but regardless, I would light a candle and I would put it there anyways, even though I hated looking at this image.
So
but we would go on our own.
Yeah,
we wouldn't go together.
Times.
We'd go separate
times. I would go to the Adoration Chapel, and then I would just stare at this beautiful image of Our Lady of Divine Providence. And I didn't know that was the name of it. I just knew like this is Mary with her child, and like it was such a beautiful image. And I was like just always drawn to it, and always like when I was praying, I would be like asking Mary to intercede for us, and just like having a big focus on this like this image of Mary with her child, just like very focused. And so
we didn't know that this was going on. So
that's so great.
Later, we actually shared about this image in the Adoration Chapel.
Well, when I was pregnant.
In our different connections. Okay, so yeah, Marie got pregnant. We went to Rome. We did a pilgrimage of Thanksgiving, and we met up with a priest friend, Father Mello, and he gave us a tour around Rome. And the original image, that painting is in a church in Rome. So, well, hey, we have to go visit this original image. And Father Mello was more than happy to bring us around. We get to this church and it's full of scaffolding and work. And we're like, oh,
They're not going to let
we're
us
not
in.
going to get in. So Father Mello starts talking to this lady who's there, and she's like, "Oh
In
yeah,"
Italian.
in Italian. It's like we've got our own personal translator, and she's like, "Okay, no problem. Come." Turns on the lights, and yeah, it's in the middle of renovations, but in this
Oh.
one corner of the chapel,
Oh, there's a chapel in the church.
in the
Yeah.
chapel in the church, yeah. There's the icon, and surrounding the icon is full of teddy bears and pillows
Huh.
of prayers that were answered
Oh.
for people who are infertility, and we had no clue
Oh.
that this
Wow.
icon, this image, had this attachment with granting people with infertility.
Yeah.
So
So the first funny, crazy thing was that we were both so like attracted either in a good way or a bad way to like the Church of Our Lady of Divine
Yeah.
Providence. And then the fact that like when we because it was very significant to us at that point when we both knew that we had the sort of this attachment to it, and then that that this was actually like a thing that like people were asking Our Lady of Divine Providence to intercede for infertility, and then we're
Wow.
like, so we got to pray there at the chapel, and it was just a really blessed moment. And then we got the image, like we were able to get the image there at that church. We got it blessed by the priest there in Rome, and we were able to bring it back, and that was hanging on Menya as well when she was a baby. So
Oh, that's so beautiful.
that's
That's
our
so
little
cool.
That's wonderful.
does that count as a wink?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's a good
That's a
wink.
good God
That's a
wink.
great God wink.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
that's
for
why
sure.
one of her middle names is Marie, like it's the French name for Mary.
Mhm.
So it's
Right.
it's like our nod to Our Lady of Divine Providence, who we
Okay.
have for intercede for in Menya as well.
Sweet.
That's
Yeah.
That's
wonderful.
beautiful. I love it. I love it. I'm like, I think that there's probably going to be a lot of people who are, because even when you talk at the beginning about that feeling of like shame, like there's like something of that in it. I feel like hopefully people who are experiencing that right now, like that isolation or that shame or things like that, that there'll be a lot of grace that's brought into their life because of your sharing. So we are so grateful to you, and we'll put all the show notes and everything if you're looking at for any of the things that Marie and Andre shared about, like NAPRO and stuff like that. You can look at our show notes, which are available on our website. So that's inthethicketpodcast.com. So all of those things will be there. And so feel free to, if you have any questions about any of that or anything, I can always forward them to Maddie and Andre. They can give you feedback.
And we can pray for couples as well. Like if you have people who would like to send in like prayer requests, we'd love to pray for those who are struggling. And
beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, this is good. We'll do that then. We'll put something on social media for that and see if we can pray for people in that way. Oh my goodness. Okay, everybody. Well, it was such a gift to have you guys here today. And we already lost Rachel. So she's halfway to the airport now. Oh, that's good. And we're looking forward to hearing, for you to hear us again next week. God bless everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of In the Thicket. If you like what you hear, give us a rating and hit that subscribe button. We have new episodes every Monday with more stories and honest conversations about life when the going gets rough and the hope and humor amidst it all. We'd love for you to join our community on Instagram and Facebook at In the Thicket Podcast. While you're there, let us know how we can pray for you. God bless and see you next week.